Welcome to the second episode of the Lumos podcast, where we discuss child and youth participation matters. Here we can dive into the nature of child and youth participation, exploring challenges, sharing success stories, learning about practical tools of engagement, listening to young people's voices, and discussing why meaningful participation is so important. If you stay with us, you will hear about Lumos' vision on child and youth participation through the eyes of our special guest today. He will share his own expertise and some good child and youth participation examples from Scotland. I am Aneta Teneva, a child and youth participation advisor, and today my special guest is Jimmy Paul, a Lumos Trustee. Hi, Jimmy. Thanks for coming and supporting this very, very new initiative. Welcome. We try to build a tradition asking our guests some personal questions at the beginning, if you don't mind. Let's get started with the first one. So tell us about yourself.
So I'm Jimmy Paul. I am first and foremost a dad to two children, 2.5-year-old and a 4-month-old, which is the biggest joy ever and a bit of a challenge, but the biggest joy ever. You've already mentioned I'm a trustee of Lumos. I have all of the usual responsibilities of trustees around governance and safeguarding, but also a specific thing that I'm on the board to do is to try and help make Lumos the best it could possibly be in terms of participation, whether that be children and young people, whether that be infants, whether that be adults with the experiences of institutions or care. So all of those things is part of my specific remit to support you with and support Lumos with. Aside from that, I live in Scotland now. I grew up in London. I grew up in East London in a place of quite harsh poverty at the time. It wasn't abnormal not to know when the next meal was coming, or to go an evening without dinner and a morning without breakfast, for example. My parents ended up splitting up and getting together, and splitting up and getting back together again, but with a father who was quite violent and a mother who became alcoholic in order to cope with that. At the age of 11, I went into the care system. So from the age of 11 till 18, I have experience of England's care system. It's not the same as institutions. And I was in foster care with some families, and in residential care as well. But it wasn't optimal. I didn't have a very good experience of care. And I think whilst it's not about me, my knowledge, that lived experience of injustice, informs my wish to make sure that other people in care, whatever setting they're in care, and hopefully obviously not institutions, but family based, if they're in kinship care or in foster care, whatever it looks like, is as good as it could possibly be. And for that to happen, we need to make sure that those lived experiences are at the heart of change. So that's a little bit about me. In my professional life, I've worked in leadership roles in health and social care organisations, in Scotland's care system. I was one of the co-chairs at Scotland's independent care review for the journey phase of that care review, and specifically on the workforce. That was my area of remit. And I'm currently a director at a small charity called the Wellbeing Economy Alliance. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you. Thanks so much. At Lumos, we are in a long process of developing child and youth participation strategy based on our more than 12-year expertise. So we try to answer to the recent challenges within our organization, but from outside too. So what is your point of view about Lumos' vision on child and youth participation, and how the board needs to be involved in this process?
So my view is one, I suppose I've already said it, and I'll say it again because it's important. At Lumos, I want us to be the best we could possibly be in terms of children and youth participation. And I don't use the phrase the best in the world or anything like that, because it's if the best in the world is 6 out of 10, we're only striving to be 7 out of 10. I want us to be 10 out of 10 in every aspect of this. So I want us to be the very best we can be. Now, I know that Lumos, before I joined as a trustee, has done lots in the way of participation, certainly at a project, at a programme level in the countries. And I've heard the most amazing things from those that have been involved in participation at a country level, whether that's involving people in the design of policies locally, or whether that is involving people and using and embracing stories as a part of influencing or care reform attempts and agendas. There's so much excellent stuff that's happened in a way that has felt authentic, real, non-tokenistic, where there's been real weight attached to the voice of those who have shared their experience, that they've not done it in a way that's been extractive. So, they've been compensated for their time, for example. So for all of these things, so I know that we're building on really good things that have happened, but I also want to see us do more. And for me, this looks like a few different things. It looks like doing even more at a country or program level. So continuing to do this stuff and make sure it's not just an add-on, but a central feature of the work we do in the different countries. The second thing is ideally to set something up which sits alongside the Lumos board. It might be an advisory committee, an advisory group, or whatever we call it. It's a group of people with lived experience of care reform or care and institutions who are informing Lumos's strategy and agenda for the future. So they sit alongside Lumos at the most senior level, guiding us in what we can do. And I expect that to be across the world and all the countries we've worked in, multi-language, which is a difficult thing to do, but the best things to do are the difficult ones in my view. So that's something else I would like to see set up. And the third thing would be some sort of alumni network. I use the word alumni meaning those who have previously been involved with Lumos and maybe done participatory work, have maybe been less involved in recent years, but we can bring them back together and build a really nice community around this group of people, those shared experiences that can form really strong bonds and relationships, as we know. But beyond that, there is a wealth of experience and knowledge and passion in that community that could really benefit Lumos and the agenda of ending institutions all over the world, making care the best it could possibly be. If it's family-based care, we need to make sure that people are flourishing, getting as upstream and preventative as possible, so that actually we are strengthening families truly so they can stay together. And that means addressing the root causes in countries. That means addressing inequalities and poverty. So I've gone from talking to you about participation in Lumos to ending poverty across the world, but I'm trying to build the interconnectedness across them. But those are a few thoughts about what I hope to do, what I hope for us to achieve together. But I should say also that these are views that have been generated with the team in the participatory efforts we've done, in the conversations we've had, in early discussions with young people, and they're not set in stone. They can, of course, be changed based on what people tell us, as is the nature of participation.
Yeah, I totally agree with your thoughts and suggestions. Can you share with us some examples from your professional life or from Scotland on child and youth participation that we could be inspired as well?
So at Scotland's Care Review, one of the best things about it was that we took an approach where we said, what works for you works in terms of your participation, whether that be where we meet, the space. Often people may feel unsafe meeting in, for example, a social work office because it's a space where a decision was made to separate them from their family or something like that. So we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't impose that on people. And children often told us their community centre, their home, for a walk in the streets, at an event in a fun new location, were places that they wanted to meet. So we made sure that was, and really actually the subtext for that isn't, it isn't about the space, it's also about power. It's about sharing and seeding power with those with care experience. So there's real weight attached to what they say and what matters to them. And we will be the ones to flex to that, because we absolutely could. So we didn't need to impose the locations for meetings. We need to make sure that we were building relationships with young people as much as we could. Now, given we met with more than 5,500 people across 3 years, that is quite tricky to do. But also building relationships with, or making sure they could bring people they had relationships with to those sessions, their parents, their carers, their friends. That was always welcomed as part of the care review's participation methodology. As well as that, we made sure that important people were in the room. So sometimes ministers would be in the room listening as part of the 1,000 Voices commitment of the then First Minister of Scotland. Sometimes the chair of the care review, sometimes the participation team at the care review, and others within the care review as well. So we made sure that the people in the room were those that would be able to hear and listen and act on what they had heard. We also, in the spirit of what works for you works, we made sure that people knew that they could share with us however they wanted to share with us. It didn't have to be through words like I'm talking now. It could be through a poem that they write down, through raps, through creative play, Lego. I've never played with Lego so much in my life as you know, across the time I was supporting the care review, because when you're playing in a colourful, creative way with younger people, you can start to sense make with them over why their house has a door that looks like that, or why there's no garden, or why, you know, they've included their pet dog because that really matters to them, or why actually, you know, there's no adult figure in the house. You know, there are lots of things you can unpick if you get creative and alongside people. So, and I've never heard so many raps again, as you know, songs, raps, poems, as I had in that year at the care review. It was brilliant. So that's also really important. And I think the last thing I'll say is, on that theme, we made sure that we were constantly asking open questions and seeking to learn and understand and being generative in our work. And by generative, I mean using an approach which we called appreciative inquiry. And by that, you listen to what the person in front of you says, and then you ask questions about that, and you continue to explore their journey through them. You do not impose on them what your view is or what you've heard from elsewhere. And by getting all that data and synthesizing it, which took absolutely ages, we would then set up go-to groups, people that would then sense check the output. So we're not then extracting it and helicoptering and taking away and processing it ourselves, but we are trying to get an idea, and we continually sense check. So there's this ongoing feedback loop between the care review itself and the participation work. So actually it feels like this work was truly driven by those with care experience in Scotland. It has broad support across Scotland's care community and the political community. So that's a lot on Scotland's independent care review. There's another example that comes to mind that I'll briefly talk about, and it's one that I've been working on in my day job at We All Scotland. And we have recently started to build what we call a children's wellbeing budget in one small area, one local authority area in Scotland, a place called Letham. So our project, on the basis of what young people wanted it to be called, is called Love Letham. And we've built a children's commission, and in a very participatory way, again using art, colour, Lego, songs, music, paint, but also having really serious discussions about the local area, we have started to co-produce wellbeing priorities with them, which are an alternative to the measures that the system uses, that local authorities use, that our economy prioritizes. And we're starting to say to the local authority, this must have real weight now. So we've secured even more funding for this project. We've built an adults commission who work with the children's commission. We're starting to think about how we can prioritize budgets to better meet these wellbeing priorities. So how can social care work better with health and education? How can their budgets be pooled to better meet the needs of children and young people in Letham? And we've received more money to set up an infants commission, so to get even more upstream and creative and to understand the needs developmentally and otherwise of infants, so that they can contribute and that the local authority understands their well-being priorities. So everything that's coming out of that is informing how the local authority budgets and resources itself. So Yeah, those are two examples that come to mind.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was very interesting, and there are a lot of to take from these examples. So if uh, now I think that if I knew before that we will talk about these things, I would name this episode "What Works for You Works." I like this very much, and it's really true. And this is something we should follow when we communicate with children and young people, especially with vulnerable children and young people. So, what are your main, let's say, 2 or 3 key messages or key lessons we have to learn or to be aware of as a Lumos community? I very much liked once when we talk about Lumos vision, and you suggested that maybe one day Lumos will turn to community of practice. So this is something I really like, and we have to learn from each other, and we have to learn from the experience and expertise of other countries and other organizations. So what are your, let's say, 2 or 3 key messages to Lumos community?
So the first thing, there's a few. The first thing is that the board is here to support you. If there's anything we can do, if you want to come to me directly, if that feels appropriate, just do it. I really want to hear from you, and I want you to know that the board is here to support you guys. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that we are, it's not just me, it's the whole board, it's the whole organization are committed to making Lumos the best it can possibly be. And I would love it if charities all over the world would point to Lumos and say, they do participation in an excellent way. But in order to do that, it does need everyone, it needs all of you to be up for understanding what good participation means and to convert that into your context. Again, I'm here to help. I know you are too, Aneta. And that means sometimes being a bit vulnerable. It might mean admitting or saying, we've not done this very well in the past, but we're committed to turning this around. And that is a much better way to be than, just not engaging in this at all. And I'm sure that all of our staff and teams and everyone in the board and everyone else is up for this challenge. So that's another key message that I'd like to give. Those are the main ones, but your point also about a community of practice, I think, is important. Obviously, through this podcast series, through the participation training that's being rolled out all across Lumos, and the sense that everybody has lots of expertise in this and maybe just needs a bit of a nudge and education in what good participation is. But lots of this you guys are doing already. So how can we start to bring people together to share learning, to create new opportunities, and to build confidence in what's happening here around participation? So I love the idea of a community of practice, and that must be a space to be bold, to be innovative, to try new things, but also, as I said earlier, to be a bit vulnerable. And I think there's a lot of strength in vulnerability, in saying, we've maybe not got this right, or I don't know this, actually, please tell me, or actually, I like what you do and I want to learn from you, so let's go for it. So those are a few key messages from me. Be bold, be vulnerable, engage, because this is going to happen. We're going to achieve this. And thank you for all the work that you've done as well so far, because I know that we are standing on the shoulders of giants and really excellent work that's come before us.
Thank you so much. So let me close our talk with some recommendations from our young people we have worked with during the years. They were involved in Lumos Child and Youth Participation audit process. We asked them, what do you recommend to Lumos to keep as good child and youth participation activities and methods from your experience as self-advocates? So some of their suggestions for Lumos are to continue working directly with children and young people, because no quality work can be done remotely, they said. To have a global youth advisory board. To rebuild again the youth advisory board structures that countries Lumos works with. Lumos to establish direct communication between children, young people, self-advocates, and Lumos board for decision-making processes. So these are reasonable and strategic recommendations we take into account very seriously as an organization, and we share them. Even in our talk today, we shared almost the same ideas. So thank you, Jimmy, for being not just our guest today, but a real and passionate supporter of child and youth participation principles and values in Lumos. Thank you all for listening to us. We hope you found this podcast episode interesting and inspirational. Stay in touch because child and youth participation matters. Bye.